In this video, I'm going to share what I learned about NoFap and how I was able to do NoFap for many months in a row. Several streaks of 5 months and 7 months, and basically figure out how to do it indefinitely, you know. That's basically the point, basically the principle, right? Finding out the key things that it takes to do NoFap successfully, indefinitely. And I definitely think that I can do longer streaks if I want to, you know. When I did break my long streaks of like 5 months and 7 months, it was never the kind of feeling of like, oh my God, this urge is just taking me over and I have to do this and I have to look at pornography. It was more of just like a conscious thing that I chose to do. Basically just like, you know, creative way to express human sexuality. Not that I'm advocating it, but I'm just saying, like, it wasn't that the addiction overcame me per se, I would say. Although some may theorize that, and I would be open to that possibility as well. But it's not as if my methodology failed or my teachings don't work. But just that, you know, yeah, I'm just letting you know that's why I broke those streaks and why I didn't go longer. But I don't like hold that against myself or anything. Because I'm happy where I am in my life in terms of all of this. And yeah, every day you just keep getting better, you know, as long as you're making good decisions with your life. So now I'm going to get on to basically the explanation of how to do NoFap successfully, now that you know a bit of backstory about my journey and everything like that. So I used to make NoFap videos, and I made like over 1,000 videos. I made like 1,500, and not just about NoFap, but all kinds of stuff. And so I even back then, like, I was still doing PMO, and basically I've boiled down everything that I learned to just the nitty-gritty essence of what it takes based on, you know, I first heard about NoFap many years ago, you know, like over 10 years ago or whatever. And through my years, you know, I've learned a lot, you know, and I used to coach a lot of people as well, and hearing people's journeys and working through things with people and making videos, helping people. So basically this is like so far the synthesized essence of everything that I've learned over like, you know, just my experience with pornography and overcoming it and all that. And my point is that I used to make a lot of videos, right? And I used to you know, but I mostly did it to make money, and my heart was never in the right place with it. And that's why I was not able to flourish in life on that path, because my intentions were not pure, and I was only doing it because I was afraid to be poor. And that was kind of just like, I didn't have the spiritual wisdom back then to understand that you don't have to chase money, but rather if you dedicate your life to what some may call finding God, or others may call expressing your spirituality without a religion. If you make that the focal point of your life, and you just humbly accept the opportunities that you have in life, you may flourish and things may go well, and you may struggle and you may have to do some things that are not so great. But in general, this is just my personal experience, is that in general, if you just put your meditation journey first in life, and it's everyone's spiritual path is different, so I'm not advocating any one thing or any one path, but I'm just saying that a big part of life is feeling one with life and feeling happy and having a deep awareness of yourself and the path that you want to pursue in life. And so, you could go in many directions with that. There's definitely the aspect of needing to figure out not only your true path in life, but who you truly are as a human being, right? But there's that. But on the other hand, it's like, this may sound like very like airy-fairy or like woo-woo, sort of new age mumbo jumbo. But basically, there's a lot of benefits to living a simple life, quieting your mind, simple practices like a little bit of meditation, having a quiet mind, is going to do tremendous amounts for the way that you see life. When you totally quiet the restless mind and you find a sense of being at peace with life, and you're really putting in a lot of effort in your life to quiet your mind, it's going to help you to see the true nature of reality. And in seeing that true nature of reality, from my experience, I would say that's the source of all bliss in life, is having a deep awareness of existence. And so, of course, I'm not trying to make light of anyone's life. I'm not trying to say that, in other words, it's like some people might say that my life is really easy, and that's why I've been able to find happiness in life. But I would say that a lot of people's lives are easy, but they're still not happy in life. So I don't necessarily think that's the reason why I am happy, but I will admit that everyone's life is hard, and there's certainly different chapters in our life that are harder and easier, the ups and downs of our life. But there's also a factor of, if you are resisting the way your life is to a degree, it's just like resisting life. How we perceive things changes based on how we are perceiving life, perceiving the situation. How we feel changes, I should say. So there could be things happening in your life, but depending on your ability to go with the flow, it could change how you feel about that situation. You could go from, like having a bad day to having a great day, having a good day, or at least being able to get through the day, what some may call successfully. But overall, I do think that if you put in the work to practice meditation, and there's many ways to meditate, and there's many aids that you can use in meditation to help you reach a state of inner peace or quietude or self-exploration or self-contemplation. And that includes things like you could listen to audiobooks, you can read books, you can, of course, there's things like just spending time in nature, anything that quiets your mind and helps you to relax is basically a spiritual aid, right? Because a huge part of waking up is having a quiet mind, is calming the mind that we have that's always perpetually thinking and overactive or busy, right? And yeah, of course, there's an emotional component to that as well, because if you have turbulent emotions, then it'll be hard to calm your mind, because your emotions are going to stir up thoughts, right? It's going to stir up the mind. So that's a part of the spiritual journey in general, I would say, is just obviously working through our attachments and our emotions, and basically the way that we perceive the past and perceive the present moment. But yeah, that's a big part of the spiritual journey, is the way that we perceive life, our perception of self as well. So as I said, quieting the mind and developing a stillness within yourself. That's why I brought up the whole thing about our emotions and how we react to life, is because, finding a sense of calmness, not just mentally or emotionally, but more of an inner stillness, a place of inner quietude, I should say, inner quietude. So yeah, to tie in how it all connects to NoFap and how it all relates to NoFap, it's pretty simple, guys. It boils down to this: temptation versus inspiration, or versus motivation, right? At the end of the day, after all my years of NoFap study and work and contemplation, from the way that I see it, is that it all boils down to temptation versus inspiration. If your temptation is stronger than your inspiration, then you're going to, whichever one's stronger, you're going to go for. So if your temptation to do PMO is stronger than your inspiration to do NoFap, you're going to do PMO. And vice versa. If your inspiration to do NoFap is stronger than your interest in doing PMO, you're going to do NoFap. And to some people, to a lot of people, that might sound like an oversimplification. That might sound like surely there's more to it than that. But it's like, once you start doing NoFap, for many months, it becomes very clear. It becomes very clear, you know, once you see that you can do nofap for months on end without doing PMO and without even thinking about PMO, once you have that experience, then you can see how it becomes, it boils down to certain things, right? It really does. So what can we do based with that knowledge? What can we do to succeed on nofap from where we are? Well, there's two things that you can do. You can find a way to reduce your temptations, your interest in PMO, or you can find a way to increase your inspiration to do nofap. So the thing about increasing your inspiration to do nofap is it almost comes from a place that you can't control in a lot of ways. That's, from my experience, that is the absolute truth about nofap, to be honest. And that's why most people struggle. It's because the ability to increase your inspiration to do nofap to the degree necessary to do nofap in a way, it's almost entirely out of our control. And, you know, one could argue that it's almost entirely out of our control. Not just like some out of our control, but almost entirely. And I'll give you some examples from real world stories to illustrate my point. So sometimes when someone gets a new girlfriend or gets a new partner, then they love that person so much, they care about that person so much that it's easy to do nofap. It's easy to do no PMO. You know, it's not like this big thing of struggle and addiction. It's just like, well, if you have someone that like really stirs something deeply in your heart, and like you're just like, you know, obviously like if you're head over heels or just like in love with someone and just like super into them, and you want to be the best person that you can be, the best partner, you know, then it's like you can do nofap without trying to, like, without really putting in much effort, because it's just your inspiration is so high. But there's no way you can just find that person, because, you know, perhaps for some people just having any partner would be good enough reason to inspire them to do nofap, right? And so you could theorize like, yeah, it's possible to get a girlfriend, and like you could say, you know, it's possible for anyone to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, and that is true, you know, to a certain degree. And I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm not saying that's not true at all, you know. But all I'm saying is that for most people, it's not just about having a partner, but it's about having one that, you know, gives you that sense of fulfillment and that sense of just like newness, and moreover, the sense of wanting to be your best for that person, right? Like you could enter into a relationship, but it might not necessarily mean that it's going to inspire you to the degree that you need to be inspired, right? So in that sense, you could say, well, it's kind of out of your control, because it's like, yeah, you can date and you can meet people and you can do your thing, but there's no way to really force finding the person that's going to inspire you inspire you, because even if you find someone that you're like, well, I like someone, but you know, getting with them is a different thing, and that's also part of it. Like, you may find someone that theoretically or absolutely would inspire you, but at the same time, whether they go out with you is not like, it's not in your control. You can try your best and do your best with yourself and presentation, but it's up to them, right? Another classic example is people get a kid, right? People get a kid. Oh, well, I have a kid now. I've seen that a lot of times, you know. There's plenty of stories online, not just about NoFap, but just like drug use as well. It's like people have these stories where it's like this one thing happened and then that was it. It's like, you know what? This one thing is too important for me to mess up. And so they do NoFap, right? You know, have a kid, get, you know, find the person, or lifestyle changes, you know, like, well, I have this great job now and I just can't afford to be doing this. Like, you know, things like I've heard stories of like, you know, just like, well, because of this one thing, and then that's that. And, you know, I've even heard that one thing being awakening of knowledge as well. You know, I've heard stories of people on NoFap, like, one day it all just clicked and I realized the depth of PMO. Like, they realized the depth of that PMO did to them, or they just realized something. They just have like some epiphany moment, and there you go, you know. And it's like, but you can't control that either, you know. That just also happens of its own accord. And, you know, I've heard people getting that revelation from my videos, not necessarily a lot. I don't know, a lot. I haven't talked to all of the people that used to watch my videos personally, so I can't really say. But I have met like a few, you know, where they just had like an epiphany moment and they're like, damn, like, that's it, I'm gonna change my life. But, you know, so like having inspirational content, you know, perhaps, and I know that like a big part of my past channel was motivation, because I wanted to be a motivational speaker, and it also just came from like, you know, all of my shitty experiences with PMO that I shared, you know, like I kind of just like poured my heart out to like, you know, like try to motivate people to stop doing this. And so that was like a big part of the channel as well, right? And so it's like, I do apologize for taking it down, and I do apologize to the people that were truly relying on that. But at the same time, there's always been people that re-uploaded my videos, and I've always made sure that there's some videos online. I actually did, I did take down some of the videos that people posted, but I never took down all of them. I always made sure that there was like, you know, at least a couple. And, you know, there still is around. Because, you know, like it was my choice to abandon that lifestyle and stop making all the videos. But I also feel like it's not so much about the number of videos that I made. Like I made 1,000 NoFap videos, you know, and it's like, I don't necessarily think it's about the number of the videos. I think that if you're truly serious about doing NoFap, you'll get the message in a few videos, you know, and there is a few videos online. There's always been a few videos online. And I think that if you're truly serious about, if you truly want to do this, like, it's not about having 500 videos at your disposal or even watching 100 videos. Although for some people, yeah, like that may be necessary for them. But at the same time, if you're serious about doing nofap, then you're going to find the videos. Even if it's not a video about nofap, maybe it's just a video about success, you know? And even hearing anyone's story about nofap, like just overwhelming your mind with that information, you know, if somebody thinks that's what it takes, or if that is what it takes for some people, you know, it's like, you can always find inspiration. You can always find good stuff to put in your head if that's what it's going to take for you, you know, or even just watching the videos that are available, right? But my point is that, you know, I don't think your ability to do nofap has diminished just because I have removed the videos, because it's like I said, all of the videos have the same point. I said the same thing 1,000 different ways, you could say. You know, it's like I just kept trying to give people information from like a 360 degree view, so to say. And that's basically what I tried to do. I tried to just say the same message 1,000 times so that people would get it. So even without the 1,000 videos, even if you just have 5 or 10 videos, it's like the message is still there. And if that's what you need to keep listening to get it in your head, or I don't know, like if you're trying to learn some shit about nofap, like the message is there, okay? If you're looking for like that kind of thing, right? Like in this video, I'm telling you just the straight up truth, that like the absolute from what I've learned how to do nofap. But if you need like, you know, just like motivation, it's out there, man. That's all I'm saying. The motivation is out there, right? So in that sense, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry about deleting the videos, because, you know, that's just life. I've chosen, this is the life I've chosen. So, that's all increasing your inspiration, right? That's what we just talked about for the past 7 minutes or whatever, is how one increases their inspiration. And, you know, what about the stuff that you can do? Well, it depends, you know. I feel like it depends on the degree of your addiction. Because it's like, I think that if you're less addicted to PMO, it's going to be easier to quit. And there seems to be this sort of tipping point, I would say, where it's like, if you're addicted to PMO, but you're not like heavily addicted, or even just like just regularly heavy addicted, you know, like there's a certain point to, you can still be addicted to it, but you haven't reached the point of no return yet, so to speak. You're at a point where it's like, yeah, you could say it's an addiction. It's a bad habit, you know, an obsessively bad habit. But it doesn't take much for the person to get their shit together. Like they watch some videos, maybe they watch a lot of videos, and, you know, maybe they do life coaching, like one-on-one with someone who knows how to do this. And they're like, you know, they over the course of like a couple weeks, a couple months, it's like they're like, they just make the switch. They're like, you know what? They've installed good habits. They've removed bad habits. They're like, you know, maybe they have like, they've invested more time into good things and they've reduced their time in negative things, basically. And they haven't necessarily reached that point of no return, is what I would call it, in their addiction, where it's like they're not addicted enough to where they can't do it after a couple weeks and a couple months, you know. And I don't know how many people is like that on like the nofap coaching or just like the nofap scene in life. Like, I don't know how many people, I know there's a lot of the people that are doing nofap on YouTube. It's like they were at a point in life where they weren't an addict, or they weren't, it was more of like a really toxic obsession compared to like an addiction. So that might be you. You know, you might be that kind of person where you can just watch some videos, really focus on your life and have these contemplations and go through your relapsing and see the difference of night and days, and really just sort of, you know, invest your time in the videos and leveling up your life, so to speak, you know, as I said, creating better habits or more fulfilling life, or making changes with your life, reducing bad things in your life. And you might be that person where you can just do it after a couple weeks, after a couple months, or even like a year or 2 years on that same methodology. But anyone else who's more addicted than that, which I would say is like 80% of people who are doing it, or maybe 70%, maybe even 60, you know, I'm not an expert, and I don't have numbers to throw out, but basically somewhere around there. 60 to 80% of you guys or girls, you're addicted to the point where it's not going to be that simple to just change your life. Because if it was, you would have already done it. And how do I know this? I know this because that's what you've been trying to do. That's what you've been trying to do for weeks and months and years, right? And I know because I know from personal experience, I know from just observation, talking to people, it's like, you know, if it was that simple, just watching the videos and really contemplating your life and knowing how good nofap is and how bad PMO is, and then just like, you know, doing your best to just change yourself without having to change much else about your life dramatically, well, it's not that simple, right? It's not that simple to just quit like that, because if it was, people wouldn't be still relapsing after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? If it was that simple. So if it's not that simple, you may think that it's complicated, but it's not. If you're one of those people like me, where it was like the worst toxic obsession I've ever had in my whole life, you know, it's like, but then at the same time, there's things that rival it, you know, like my own ignorance. You know, like, that's ultimately like the thing that you could say ruined my life the most. And just being ignorant. You know, that's what it all boils down to. An ignorant person. Like, being ignorant and lost in a way that is not authentic to your soul. Right? To be ignorant of one's true self, one's true path, one's true purpose or meaning, or just basically your true self. Not to get too convoluted, you know? To know yourself, to know life, to know the universe, and to know a good path to follow. You know, if all of us knew these things from childhood, you know, we'd be superhuman. You know, people would look at us and be like, this guy is, you know, phenomenal, right? This guy, if we know not what now, back then, like, and you know, I know a lot of people, like, they still struggle to know themselves and like a suitable path to follow, and like they're lost in like a world of ignorance, illusion. So you see, what it's boiling down to is it's also out of our control, man. Because it's just like, because of the time in our life that we discover NoFap. That's the issue, right? It's like, well, you're already so deep in ignorance and PMO and doing bad things that it's like, you know, drastic changes need to be made. And that's the only way. Drastic changes need to be made. And as I said, increasing the inspiration that you have to do NoFap is a trick. It's like you can't really, it's not really in your control. You know what I mean? Because if it was in our control to increase our inspiration to do NoFap to the degree of just like breezing through it, we would all do it. If it was capable, if it was possible, if you could just increase your inspiration, like how, you know, it's like, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's like that. It's because it doesn't matter how inspired you are to do NoFap. That's not what makes an addict do NoFap, or that's not what makes an addict get sober. I would say most addicts, they're tremendously inspired to get sober, to do NoFap. They are remarkably inspired. But the thing is, because they are an addiction, because there is an addiction, the power of temptation is magnified to the degree that you are an addict. So having your cell phone next to you, if you're not really addicted to PMO, well, whatever. It's like, it's your choice at that point. It's your choice whether you're going to do it or not. If your temptation is low, then it's like, it's a choice. It's your choice of whether or not. Even if you're not that inspired to do NoFap, you know? But it depends which one's higher, which one's more powerful, right? Because an addict, their temptation to do PMO has no magnification. To them, it's just pornography. Like, yeah, I can watch porn if I want to, or I cannot, or I won't even think about it. It's up to me. It's all my choice. I cannot think about it, I can do it, or I cannot do it, right? That's because the magnification of the temptation in their consciousness, it's not magnified. They see everything on equal footing. Or from a balanced perspective, you could say, right? But the thing is, the more you develop, the more the consciousness develops an addiction towards that thing, the power of the temptation is magnified, it is increased, it is multiplied. So, taking it to pornography, it's like, okay, well, pornography is digital these days. I mean, not always, but I'm just saying, like, most pornography is on the internet, right? Digital. So it's connected to our phone, our laptop, computer, tablet, anything that can go on the internet, right? So that's like the source. That's like the pipe and the lighter, basically, right? If we're comparing addiction to addiction, apples to apples, just like a comparison of, you take away the substance and you just look at the addiction, right? The more that you are addicted, the larger that temptation becomes. And if you take away the substances, you look at how the user experiences that drug, right? So for pornography, it would be through our cell phone or through technology, through the internet, through a screen, we have that experience. And, you know, it is an addiction. It becomes an addiction for people. The more it is an addiction for someone, then the more that thing tempts them, for one, the more that the temptation they will have, the amount of temptation increases, right? But also the temptation that comes from outside sources rather than internal sources, right? Because the desire to do PMO, just like, you know, thinking about it, wanting it, craving it, just like internally obsessing about it, that temptation is coming from inside of us, right? But there's also external sources of temptation. Sorry, I was just adjusting my windows. There's also external sources of temptation, right? Like cell phone in this case. Like if it was like someone else, like, you know, it could be looked at as a substance itself in a way. Like there's many things that remind us about that substance or about that experience, about that thing. I'm gonna move my car because there's people. But basically, it's as I was saying. One second. All right, my bad, man. So boiling down to temptation versus our inspiration, right? So we're speaking about external sources of temptation. So that could be your cell phone, as I said, anything that you're using to look at pornography, right? Such as like, you know, someone who's addicted to crack is like, you know, that's like someone's crack pipe and lighter. You know what I mean? Like if you look at just the addiction to addiction comparison, it's like, well, what is the media? What is the way that they're accessing that chemical or that substance, right? So it's like, how do you smoke crack? You know, like with a crack pipe and a lighter. So it's like, how does one do PMO? Well, they're doing PMO through the pipe of their cell phone or their other whatever they're using, right? So it's like, think about it like that, like, well, how tempted. The thing about PMO is it's like it doesn't run out. You always run out of substances like crack or weed or anything, you know what I mean? Alcohol, pills, any possible thing. We always run out. If you do it, people run out. But you don't run out of pornography. It's unlimited. It's like having unlimited crack to smoke, unlimited weed to enjoy. Like, whatever. This is obviously, making a leap for what some people might say, right? Like, some people may say, like, oh, comparing pornography to all of these other hardcore things is like, well, that's not fair. But in a way, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's true, because if you're just looking at the addiction itself, it's like, porn addiction gets really crazy for people, and it's like a lot of the negative things that are happening sexually on the planet is because of pornography. It's like, yeah, weird people do exist. And I would say the most examples of like bad, inappropriate sexual things that are happening is just because the person is like fucked up, you could say. But like, I think that pornography is a really bad drug for people like that, I would say. Like, there's this one famous serial killer. I forget exactly which one it was, but there was a famous serial killer. And like really famous, like, like kidnapped like 25, 50 people. You know what I mean? Like, and it was an interview of him in his last years in prison, probably for like his death sentence, or I don't know. There's a video, a famous guy. And he said that everyone that was doing what he was doing was all heavily involved in pornography. So we have to kind of recognize that, it does play a part in the world. So, it's like, it is seriously bad news. And it's like, in a way, it's not. Like, the thing itself, if you're just looking at the thing itself, like if you're just looking at pornography, I wouldn't say that it's bad. I wouldn't say it's bad at all. I think that's a belief. That's more of like what you believe about pornography, because it's like, we're not wise enough to see how pornography may be helping some people. So in some way or another, right? Even someone who's struggling with nofap, there may be a reason why pornography is in your life. And, once you get sober or change things in your life and realize things, you may see how it was a necessary part of your life, right? But I would say that it's not a good path to be on. Of course, that's just from my experience and the people that are with this message or doing this kind of thing, right? So it's not as if our inspiration is not there, right? It's like, it's easy to see that PMO is like ruining your life. Like, that's really easy to get. You just look at your life. You look at your life and you look at yourself. And how do I feel? And how does I feel to live my life? So this is what we all know, right? And in that knowing, just in that knowing alone, so much inspiration is already there. There's like Super Saiyan Goku, you know, like Ultra Instinct Goku waiting to be unleashed. But it's covered by the temptation, because whichever one's stronger, that's what you're going to go for. So for most of you people that are watching this video, I would say that you have just like the most insane inspiration and motivation, but it's like it can't come out, because every time you relapse, it's there, and you feel so inspired to change. You're like, this is it. I'm going to get my life together. You have this moment of epiphany. You're like, no, you have all these plans and dreams, and this is what I'm going to do because I'm so inspired. I'm so inspired to do this, and I'm doing it this time. It's like that level of passion is inside of you, right? It's not as if you have no inspiration to do no FAP, because when you have a bad relapse or when you have a moment of clarity, then it's like, it's all there, that inspiration. All you need to do no FAP is already there. That passion, that inspiration, that strength, that ability, and that essence to do it is already inside of you. And so, it's already been a 50-minute video. And that's good, because it's going to illustrate my point. I made 1,000 no-fap videos, and I just spoke for 50 minutes. And there may have been a lot of insight in that, and there may have been a lot of, maybe a lot of just filler information that people didn't care about, or maybe they don't need, or they think they don't need. But that's my point, man. Is because it all boils down to this. You can say everything you want about NoFap. And this is true. You can watch 1,000 NoFap videos. But I'm going to tell you, after making NoFap videos for 7 years, and making a lot of them, and, doing my own personal journeys, and helping people and coaching people, I can tell you that it boils down to this. You can watch a 53-minute video, but I'm going to tell you the truth of the whole situation in just 10 seconds. Is that whether or not someone does NoFap or PMO is all about whether their temptation or their inspiration is higher. Whichever one's higher, they're going to go towards. So, as we said, increasing our inspiration, well, there's a tipping point. And for the people that are not like so heavily addicted, then they'll have what it takes through their days, weeks, months, and years. They'll have what it takes to overcome the addiction. Why? Why is that? Because they are increasing their inspiration, and they could be lowering their temptation as well. But I would say sometimes it's hand in hand. Sometimes you make changes to your life and it's both. You get inspired to do NoFap more, and PMO is lowered. The urge to do PMO is lowered. And of course, we're talking about things that we can do to bring us more inspiration in our life. Because as we stated in the beginning of the video, it's like, once you reach that tipping point, it becomes out of your control to increase your inspiration enough to do NoFap without making serious changes to your temptation to do NoFap. That's the tipping point, okay? The tipping point is that you're going to reach a level where the addiction is so hard, the desire to do that thing and the systemic use of doing it is so hardwired into the fabric of your ego that that's the point. That is the point when the temptation encapsulates your spirit and will for success on NoFap. It's that point of, well, it's just, just talking about addictions and all that. So in other words, there's going to be a point when you can't just make yourself more inspired to do NoFap, because it's like the temptation to do PMO has become so big that it's like it's just not going to work. And why is that? Why is that? That's a good question if you're asking that. Well, why? And I'll tell you. It's because how easy pornography is to watch, how easy PMO is to do, and the fact that it's free. There's paid services and there's paid subscriptions, but it's all free it's free on the internet for like enough material to fulfill the person's addiction or their interest, their obsession, I should say. That's the thing. And it's so easy to have a phone, right? It's so easy to have a phone these days, or some kind of device. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably have something, right? Maybe you're watching it from a device that you can't do PMO on. And that's cool. But, it's like, well, most of you, I would say most people that are doing PMO and watching this video, the fucked up part is, it's fucked up, but it's also like enlightening, is that the same device that you're using to do PMO is the same device you use to do NoFap, to like watch the NoFap videos and like online content about NoFap, and that inspires you towards a higher life, right? That's the fulcrum. The fulcrum of doing it or not doing it, but it's also like the chalice, And in that chalice, there's good and evil, black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. In the chalice of your cell phone or device, you have the addiction with all of its darkness, all of its blackness, and you have the wisdom of NoFap. It's more of like a potentiality, right? It's like the light is there in your cell phone, talking about all this good stuff that's going to inspire you to do NoFap. It's there in more of like a digital form, right? Because as I said, that layer of darkness that surrounds us, that encapsulates us, which is our ignorance, that's the addiction, right? But it's also, it has offshoots, but that we can just say that's the addiction that encapsulates people with this temptation. And it's like, once you get rid of PMO, that's the light of the inspiration, right? Or it could also be like, as I said, when something happens in one's life that really it increases your inspiration to such a degree that it just shatters the darkness of PMO addiction. instantly. And that happens, like you find a partner, like you find a girlfriend, and she's just like, she's so good for you. It's like, it's everything you've ever wanted. Then it's like, well, you could just go months without doing it. Like if you truly want to be your best that you can be for that person, your inspiration becomes so strong that it just shatters the darkness of the desire for doing that thing. Right? Because it's almost like, why is that? It's because it's all about the light of your true self. You see, as I already said, all of the inspiration that you need to do nofap is already within you. It's already there. That's why you just listen to a guy talk for 1 hour. Because you're so inspired to do this. You're so ready and just willing on a moment's note to do this. That's how inspired you are to do it. Otherwise you wouldn't have watched a whole hour. I was like, that's kind of excessive, unless you don't watch an hour video unless it's like you're into it, especially one that's like more educational. So the inspiration is there. And sometimes a certain thing happens in life. You meet someone, you have a kid, you get a better job, some spiritual epiphany, your life changes in such a way where you're so inspired to do nofap that it's like you find one of those things, it unlocks that light that's within you. It's like we are surrounded not only in a haze of what our ego is desiring, but then you have the addiction that is also covering people's light. So sometimes an event happens in our life that to us is magnificent enough to just like the darkness of that addiction just disappears because the light of your inspiration is so high. And you can take that metaphorically or more literally, right? But basically, I would say it's usually most rooted in people's true path in life, right? Like, that's the thing. It's like, the farther you are from your true path in life, it's like you get lost in that darkness. Right? And that's a hard concept for people to grasp, because the essence and sum total of this entire video is this. Sometimes the only thing that you can do, and I would even go so far as to say most times, most of the time, the only thing that you can do to overcome your PMO addiction, or just do do nofap, the only thing you can do is actively do something to reduce the amount of temptation that you have to do PMO. So, well, you don't need to watch an hour-long video to tell you that if you can't stop looking at porn on your phone, you shouldn't have a phone, dude. You don't need to watch an hour-long video. Like, if you told that to anyone, Like, if you told that to someone who is not a PMO addict, are you kidding me? Like, it's so obvious. Like, if you told them, if they knew exactly how bad your addiction was, and you told them that you're using your cell phone, like, if they knew that, 90% of people, they'd be like, well, I don't think you should have a phone. Like, I think no matter what, you should do what it takes to get rid of your phone. Now, the people that say that would be people who know about addiction. Because, the vast majority of people, they would just sort of like expect you to be better. You know what I mean? Like, the people that don't understand PMO addiction or just addiction in general, it's like, if they knew what we were doing, or if they do know what we were doing, there's an expectancy to just get your shit together. Like, let's say a wife finds out her husband has a porn addiction, right? And he's been watching all these videos all this time, or she, I don't know, like, whatever the case may be. But it's like, if she doesn't understand what it's like to be addicted to porn, then she's going to expect him to just be better. She's going to expect him to be a better person. Right? She doesn't have the awareness of what it's like to be an addict. So, she, he, they, them. They don't have that awareness of what it's like to have a porn addiction. So for them, they're just going to expect you to be better. But for the people that understand the way that addictions work, they are going to tell you 100% of the time, I think you should get rid of your cell phone. That's what I think. It's like, man, like I'm saying, like, if you told them in like some way how bad your addiction is, like how bad, not only how bad is it what you're doing or experiencing or perceiving, but just like how much you're doing it, and like the fact that it's like ruining your life. Like, if they knew that, and they're like, they know about addictions, and they don't have tremendous amounts of attachment towards your actions in like a one-on-one personal way, then they're going to tell you 100% of the time, I think you should get rid of your cell phone. Like, it'll be like, well, if that's their response, if you tell them that, they'll be like, well, I mean, you should probably get rid of your cell phone. Like, and here's the thing. It doesn't matter who's true, who's right or wrong. Who's right, who's wrong? What's the truth? It doesn't really matter what anyone tells you, because I'm going to tell you the truth right now, man. You're going to reach a certain point in your addiction when there's not going to be anything you can do to make yourself inspired enough to stop doing PMO, as long as your cell phone is right next to you. As long as you have easy access to your cell phone, I'm just telling you right now, there's going to come a certain point in your journey when having a phone next to you, the temptation, like a certain point in your addiction, there's going to be a point where having a cell phone next to you is just too much. And no matter what, if it's by you, you're going to relapse. Right? And, I'd say even that topic could be debated. I say even that could be debated. Like, well, some people might say like, no, no matter how addicted you are, if you just change your life enough, or I don't know, maybe they give some great motivational speech and they think this is going to do it, or but at the end of the day, both parties would agree, whatever your opinion is or viewpoint, both parties would agree if your temptation, or if your temptation is higher than your inspiration, or vice versa, whatever one's strongest, that's one you're going to go for, right? But it takes years to realize that on your own. That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned after 7 years of relapsing. It's like way back in the day, it almost seems like. I would say that it's just too much, man. It's like someone gets, too ignorant, too addicted, and it's like whichever one is higher, There's going to come a point where someone's just like, the temptation is too much. Because either way, like that's the way you got to look at it. That's what it all boils down to anyways. Which one's stronger, temptation or inspiration? So if you're doing PMO, obviously the pull towards that is stronger than the thing that doesn't want to do it. The inspiration is like the light of why you're doing this, It's the reason why you don't want to do PM. It's the reason why you want to do no FAP, right? So if you're at that point, then you have to focus and work on getting rid of your temptations. So a lot of people are just joking themselves, I would say like 60% of people that are struggling with PMO, I would honestly say 60% of people struggling with PMO, they could easily get rid of their cell phone if they wanted to. Now, it's not always that simple, because I would say like, well, more than half of those people, they rely on their cell phone somehow for work or for school, or for, maybe it's not a cell phone, maybe it's a laptop or whatever, maybe I need my laptop for school, or whatever it might be. And I would say it's still your choice to be involved in that thing, though. You could get a different job. You could get a different job easily. Maybe you'd have to work harder. Maybe you would have to make less money, or whatever it might be. It would be different. Maybe you would just go against what your desires. Because, a lot of people, they convince themselves, well, I need my phone for work. And it's a belief. They've convinced themselves, well, based on this is my dream, though. That's what it always boils down to. Well, it's my dream. This is like, my job is so good, I can't quit. Or I'm going to school, it's too important. Or I need it for this and that reason. And it's too important to me. It's a desire. Well, I need to succeed. And that was the problem of my channel, is I was addicted to succeeding in life. I don't know what my problem was, man. It was just like, I was obsessed with the idea of making money. Because rather than accepting what life gave me, I created my own vision, which was not congruent with my highest path. Then well, you see, That's the problem. Because that's what I got entangled with, you know? I didn't know my true path, my true self. And so that's what I'm saying is people convince themselves. That's what I'm talking about, people's dreams, right? The dream that I had, the vision that I had, the focus that I had about, well, I have to get successful in this way, you know? Rather than humbly accepting what life gave me and living without a cell phone, you know, maybe I would have had to work harder. Maybe I would have had to work a harder job, you know, work worse jobs. Maybe that's the thing, you know, maybe you got put off school for a while or quit your job, get a new job. You may have to work harder, right? You probably will have to work much harder. If anything, you'll probably have to work harder, you know? But the thing is, what's worse? Working super hard or being a porn addict? And that's yeah, what's worse? You know what I mean? Would you rather, well, at that point, give up on your dreams, you know, whether they're your real dream or like, whether they're like your real path or just like false dreams? In that moment, it's still your dream, right? So even if you're too ignorant to realize your highest path in life, the dreams that you have is going to be a false reality. Because the thing is, if we're not submerged in our highest path in life, and if we don't have, I guess that's the main gist of it. You know, we're not gonna see clearly, right? Obviously, if we don't know what our highest path is, well then we're going to waste our time with a lot of stuff that's not our highest path. Because let's just think about it, like, if you could start your life back over again, knowing what you know now, don't you think that you would have a remarkable life? If all of the life abilities and skills and just, you know, self-awareness, awareness of what resonates with you, if you could go back and start your life from birth with that knowledge, with that wisdom and understanding, your life would be more than night and day. It would be a drastic and dramatic comparison, right? And that would mean you'd have a drastically different life. Your entire life would be absolutely, beyond words, stupendous, you know? And the degree that your life would be good is dependent on your own current awareness of your true path in life, right? Because that's what I'm saying, is like, well, we don't always know what that true path in life is. That takes, you know, it takes time. It's almost like life is chiseling away at our ignorance, eventually to release or to have our higher destiny, right? But, you know, it's like, you know, man, not everyone's ready for that. You know what I mean? Like, that's life. It's like internal, external, you know? It's like, it's internal because it's like, it's an internal journey, you know? It's a personal thing that you discover over time. Like, you know, just think about how ignorant we've been up until this point. And it's like, you know, it's life, you know, we gain clarity with life, you know, through the experiences of our life, learning, growing, contemplating, realizing, you know. Well, it's just interesting because I'm speaking from the perspective of like, you know, I may not have a perfect life, and like, you know, it could be easy for me to be sad about like, well, my life's not better. But at the same time, like, I mean, I've never been this happy with my life. And it's not that I have a lot of success to show for anything in life. And it's not that I haven't made a tremendous amount of mistakes in life. And it's not that I am insincere in, you know, accepting that, you know, I am sincere in accepting the fact that I'm not perfect. You know, I accept the fact that, you know, I'm not a perfected being yet. But at the same time, I've never been this happy in my life. It's almost scary how happy I am, you know? Because I'm progressing a lot in life on the things that matter to me, you know, like meditation and basically the search for truth, you know, but put into a meditative art, you know, a quest for personal growth, not from a successful standpoint, but from a standpoint of, you know, spirituality. And I've never really been this happy in my entire life until now. Right? Now, you know, fortunately for me, personally, that's the thing. It's like, now that I have an awareness of like the things that resonate with me and the things that, you know, make me feel good as a person and just like happy with life and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, I know that now. I have a clear understanding of what that is for me, like as a person, you know, like it takes time to understand like what you truly value in life. But it's more than just your values. It's more of like, you know, what matters to you. Because it's like we don't really discover that, you know, like it takes time. It's like I said, you know, it's like slowly through the process of time, life is sculpting us into our perfect self. All right? If you want to look at it from like a broad perspective, like mostly if you believe in reincarnation or some kind of process in which people could be redeemed or perfected, it's a process, right? If you look at it from that point of view, then it's like time, we are being sculpted by time and experience in this, you know, this world that we live in. And that's just the thing. It takes time. And, you know, so that's what it boils down to is our dreams. You know, it's like people don't know their true path in life. So, because people don't know what their true path in life is, they have false beliefs and false goals and false dreams and false aspirations. Basically, it's like this. If you were rich, how would you live your life? okay, well, just because someone's rich doesn't mean they're going to be happy or live a good life. But put it this way. If you were rich, what would you do? If you go from not being rich, obviously, or I guess was what I'm telling them. I don't know. If you were rich, I guess in general, what would you want to do with your life? You know, leaving the addiction aside, because the addiction will still be there even if you're rich. But I'm just saying, like, if money is not like, you don't need money, you have all the money you need. How would that change your view of reality as far as how you live? Like, a lot of our dreams, and like, it's funny, it's like, when you need money, that changes how you see where you want to go in life. You know, because it's like, well, it's just the thing, man. Like, if you don't know what is most important to you on like a soul level, then it doesn't become a priority. And so for the people that are telling me, like, well, I need my phone, or I need my computer for work, or for school, or for this reason, or for that reason. And that's why, you know, but a lot of the times, that's just in someone's head, you know? And that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like, well, based on your current ideology of the way you see your dreams and what you're pushing for financially, and like, even with your life in general, well, maybe you need it for this, that, and the third. I've even heard people say, like, I told people this online, like, just get rid of your phone. Like, of course, I've been saying this for the whole time for years, you know, like, well, you know, just get rid of your devices, man. And I've heard people say, I heard one guy say, I need my phone to watch NoFap videos. Like, I'm not going to get rid of my phone that I'm relapsing with because I need to watch NoFap videos. And that might seem stupid, or like, you know, we can make fun of that guy. I wouldn't, but I'm just saying, like, you can see so many things about our own life, or just people's lives, I should say, that it's almost just pure laziness. You know, well, like, I need it to play video games, or I need it to fucking do yoga, or I need it to, you know, I need it to practice music. I need it to, like, it could be ridiculous. It could be even more goal-oriented. Like, you know, I need to watch movies. I need to play video games. I need to, you know, and it could also be something like, well, I need to build a business, and I need to have this job, and I need to go to college, and I need to better myself. I need to watch spirituality videos. You know, how am I supposed to watch success motivation if I don't have my phone? And it's like, you know, whether you are pursuing money and success, or even your life, from a perspective of not even knowing what truly matters to you yet, because you haven't really realized it, you haven't, like, you know, you haven't awakened to, like, your higher purpose in life. Or whether it's because you're just being ridiculous. You know, like, well, I need my phone to fap, so how can I get rid of my phone to do no fap? You know, it's like people just make up anything, you know, like, well, I gotta play video games, I need to, you know, how am I gonna order pizza if I don't have my phone? Or, you know, whatever excuse it might be, whether it's from a place of like pursuing your goals that don't matter to you, or maybe they do matter to you, or it's from a place of just like making up excuses, you know, it's like you have to ask yourself this question. You have to ask yourself, well, what's worse? What's worse, not being able to do what I want to do right now, or being this PMO addict and doing PMO and having a PMO addiction? Well, what's worse? You got to think about it like that, man. Like, what's worse? Because a lot of you are just like you're like trapped in this way of thinking because you don't know what really matters to you in life. You know, it's like, and as I was saying, like money, that's a big part of it. Like, because people change their whole life plan based on money. It's like, well, I need a good job and I need this and I need that. I need to pursue success in this certain way because that's going to make my life easier, because I don't want to be poor. You know, like people are afraid of not having money, which is the way that I saw life for a long time, you know, like 10 years. That's the way I saw life, is like, well, I need money, so therefore I'm going to live my best life with the cell phone, with technology. And that's like part of the way that you're pursuing it, right? Or maybe it's just a part of your life. Maybe that's just ingrained in your life. Well, when it comes time to get rid of it, you know, it's like you have to weigh that option in your head. Well, what's worse? What's worse, being a PMO addict and having this experience of the addiction and the relapsing and what it's doing to me in my life, or giving up my phone and then just having to deal with my life as that is, you know, having to just deal with my life, you know, get a different job or put my dreams on hold or not do what I want to do, not live how I want to live. What's worse, that or being a PMO addict? And it comes down to humility, you know, like, well, I don't want to give up my job, and I don't want to not go to college, and I don't want to give up on my dream or this thing and that thing. You know, it's like, well, what's worse though? I mean, if you think about it, like, well, yeah, but I want to be successful. You know, like, it's the thing, like, money influences people, you know? It's like, I want to be successful, so I want to go in this certain direction, and I need my phone. Well, a lot of times, that's just like, you know, prevarication is a good word to describe it. And because it's like, well, you still could do that. You could find a way to use your phone less or not use your phone at all for an extended amount of time and have that somehow contribute to the dream and direction that you're going in. There's always a way to do that. You know, even, you know, maybe it could just be as simple as putting your thing on hold. Maybe it's just that simple. Like, well, for now, you can't pursue that thing. And the good news about PMO or NoFap is, you know, the good news is that once you go for, you know, several months, it's like, you know, you develop momentum. You start developing momentum in life. And so it becomes easier, right? Yeah, as I was saying, it gets easier, right? So that's what it boils down to, man. Sometimes you just have to get rid of that device and suck it up and be like, well, I got to put that on hold. But as I was saying, it's like, well, the longer you do NoFap, the easier it becomes in a way, right? But what it boils down to is, I guess, letting that light shine that's within you, like getting to the point where where it's easy to do NoFap. Like that's what the point everyone wants to get to, right? Get to the point where it's easy to do NoFap, where you can just do, and I've been like that. I've had that, man, just like, 5-7 month streaks where, you don't want it, or you don't really want it, or you're just strong enough because you have so much inspiration. You're strong enough to, if there even is an urge, you're strong enough to not do it. Or it could just be easy, like you don't think about it. And that has to do with many things, it has to do with time under your belt, just going without the substance. That's going to make it easier. It's like, I think it has a lot to do with, to sound kind of new age, whatever, just like finding your highest path in life, finding your true path in life, and being in alignment, or like finding what that is for you, like finding your true calling or your true path in life. Because when you're in alignment with that part of your life, that part of your mind or yourself, then it's going to help unlock that light that's within yourself. It's kind of like I said, we all have the inspiration inside of us, but it's not shining, right? Because like I said, you have every reason to do NoFap. And like, it's like I said, after people relapse, they do feel that inspiration of like, they feel this, you have epiphanies about like, at least what is right and what is wrong in your life for you personally, even if you are using technology for your goals and your dreams and your purpose, it's like, you still understand that. So actually, I said that wrong. I said that wrong. It's like, even if you're not on your highest path, you still know, because you've had this experience from relapsing and trying to do NoFap, you still know that maybe you don't know all of your highest path, but you know that NoFap in general is like, a part of it, right? So, in other words, what that means is that we all have that inspiration to do NoFap inside of us. And sometimes you just gotta, like, if I put it this way, I was lucky enough to find inspiration from an external source that made me want to not do PMO. And, that was after years of doing PMO and trying my best to do it on my own and failing because I didn't want to get rid of my smartphone, because I told myself that I need my smartphone for this, that, and the third. Well, I kept relapsing, right? Because the temptation was too much. Just like all of you guys, your inspiration to do NoFap is so great because you just listened to this talk for an hour and 40 minutes, your inspiration is so great that you're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. Now, the problem is addiction and temptation versus inspiration. It's always moving, right? So it's not like you're always 60% temptation, 40% inspiration. It's not that dramatic, set in stone. It's fluid and it moves, If you have a relapse and you're like so inspired to get your life together, well, there it is. All of that inspiration is with you in that moment. It's like 100% inspiration, right? But then, a day later, 2 days later, an hour later, a week later, it's like, well, now the temptation is almost 100%, right? And that it's a never-ending war that people have with themselves, right? Because it's like one moment you're just like so sure you're going to get your life together. And that's the reason people don't give up their cell phone, because they're so sure of themselves. They're just like, I can do this. I can do this. That's what it is. I said, it takes an element of, humility to just accept life as it is, right? To accept the way your life has to be for an extended amount of time, to do no FAP, if that's what it takes, Because I said, I'm lucky because I met a girl and she inspired me to do no FAP, right? And it's like, even though I'm on my own right now, it's like, well, the experience taught me something. It taught me about myself, taught me about my path, taught me about what I like, just from that's all stuff I learned on my own, but, I'm just saying there was a catalyst sort of thing in my life, and all of a sudden my urge to do PMO was just zero, or somewhere in 10% or below. But most of the times it was just zero, something happened in my life where I was so inspired to do no FAP that I just stopped thinking about it. And even before that point, there was times when I did no FAP as well, even a 7-month streak, when I was doing juice fasting and all raw foods and yoga and just mostly fruit, just it's very simple and plain. I went 7 months without even, it was easy, and I was studying brahmacharya. I was studying all these celibate monks from India and things of that nature. And I'm not saying I recommend it, it could be extreme, but people say there's a lot of benefits of juice fasting at the very least, I'm not even talking about diet, but just cleaning out your body with the juice fast. But it was always the thing is I was too stubborn to get rid of my phone because I was so sure of myself. I was so sure that, what, I can do this because I need my cell phone for work. And, maybe you need your cell phone for this, that, and the third. Maybe even just a personal reason. Maybe it is video games. Maybe you're a streamer. You know what I mean? Maybe you're going in that direction or something. And it's that's the thing. When you relapse, you're so sure of yourself. Your inspiration is 110%. You're so sure of yourself that I'm going to do it. You have a plan. Not always. I'd say half of the people that relapse, it's the opposite. They feel like they're never going to do anything. They feel like this is just going to end for them someday, you know, like with their life. And just like, you know, that's how some people feel after relapse. But even those people have had moments of like, this is it. I'm going to do this. Because that's what it boils down to. Like, well, you can get rid of your cell phone. You can get rid of your computer. Maybe you have to work a job that's more difficult. Maybe you have to put your dreams on hold. Maybe you have to do things differently. Maybe your family, maybe you have to move, dude. Maybe it's something crazy. Like you work a good job so you can take care of your house for your family. And maybe you have to move to a worse place. A smaller house in a different town because you have a different job. I mean, who knows, man? I don't know what things you have to deal with. I don't know what things you guys have to deal with, right? But it's like I said, man, I don't know everyone's life. There might be people that they're out there that's like, you know, well, that really wouldn't work for them. You know, they're just stuck in this path where it just really wouldn't work. You know, and I would say, why is that? You know, normally it's just family, isn't it? Is that not it? Well, I got to work this job for my family. Like all of us regular guys will like, you work at fucking Pizza Hut and you need your phone for the deliveries. You know, it's like, well, just get a job at Subway. You know what I mean? Like, well, you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't need your cell phone. Like a lot of the regular guys out here, like you, me, and fucking them. It's like, we're just regular guys. We're not fucking successful businessmen with, you know, making like, I don't know what people's job is that they think is so important that, you know, they can't change it for another job. And that's what I'm saying, you know, like, well, maybe you're already set up though, you know, like you have a good job and you have a family to take care of, whether you're a woman or a man or whatever. You have a family to take care of. Because if you don't have a family to take care of, then it's like, well, why do you need so much money? Why do you need to succeed more than you need to enhance your life personally? It's like, yeah, you can chase your dreams and you can get better at doing things that's going to make you more money. And you can pursue a goal that your life will be better in the end. Like, oh, well, I have to build a business and that's going to take 7 years or 2 years or 1 year. Right? Or, you know, I need my cell phone for this reason and that reason. But when it comes to creative ideas like that, that's not based on necessarily taking care of your family, but just your own personal endeavors. There is a way to actively increase your value in that field without your cell phone or without your device. I guarantee it. And, you know, that's mostly for like, you know, the creative outlets of making money, right? Like artists and content creators. And, but I think that theory or principle could apply to a wide variety of branches of, you know, paths that people may have, you know, like, just getting better at that target niche. Even there's a way to do that even without your phone or without like even if you make content, it's like, and you can, or something in that field, it's like, and you put down your phone, well, you can still be improving at that thing. You can think of it in a different way. You know, if you rearrange your life, if you just tell yourself, well, that's it, I'm going to get rid of my phone, I'm going to get rid of my computer, and that's it. There's a way to arrange your life where it can contribute still to that dream or that goal that you have, right? Like, you can still be working on that thing to get better or more skillful or knowledgeable, like in your own free time, you know, like find a way to do it to the point where it would be justifiable to, you know, get rid of your phone or your computer. But people are so sure of themselves. Like I said, well, people are thinking like, well, how can I do that? You know? Because when they relapse, they're so inspired and they come up with a plan, and they're pumped up and they're charged, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to change things. I'm going to live different. My mindset's going to be different, you know, and that's addiction. It mostly affects the frontal lobe of our brain, which is, you know, they say is the part of the brain that's associated with rational thinking, problem solving, you know, like creativity, like big pictures. But also like your instantaneous thinking as well. You know, they say that's the part most affected with addiction, but it's like your reasoning faculties. That's part of it, you know, like part of the frontal lobe is like, you know, the way that you rationalize and the way that you think and the way that you feel or perceive life. And so because the addiction affects that part of the brain, you know, it's like they're making irrational choices. Even though you're so pumped up one moment, it's like you're rational. It's like you're so clear, you're so sure that you have this plan, that you're going to change and things will be different. Even if it's just like your own internal drive when you're feeling inspired, like this is it, I'm going to do it. Well, even if that's the case, you know, a day later, an hour later, or a week later, it's just like, you're just not that strong. You're not that strong to have a cell phone, dude. Like, you're not that strong, buddy. That's just how it is. You're not that strong to have a cell phone and a computer next to you just because you're pumped up and inspired and I'm going to change and I'm going to do things differently and, you know, be a better man. But it's like, you're not that strong. Because you've reached that point where you've gone too far, bro. You've gone too far. The addiction has just consumed you. You've gone too far into it. There's some people, they would have stopped this stuff 6 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, but you're still doing it. Now, that could be a wide variety of reasons. As I said, we've discussed a lot of things in this video. There could be a wide variety of reasons why. But a lot of you guys, it's just for the sake that I'm mentioning earlier. Like, well, I said you're not strong enough. It's like, even though you're so inspired and pumped up and ready to do this, the darkness is stronger than you, man. The darkness of that addiction has taken you over. It's consumed you. It's created a shroud around you. And what I'm telling you, bro, is sometimes the only way to get rid of it is to get rid of your phone, because that's where it's coming from. Because if you don't have your phone, you can't be doing PMO, right? It's quite simple. So sometimes that's the only way. Sometimes the only way is to throw that away and start a new life, do whatever it takes, get a different job, whatever you have to do. Maybe you have a family. And I would tell you this, man. My parting words. If you love your wife so much, if you love your family so much, then why are you taking this away from them? You know, like, what's more important? Taking care of your family or this? If you love them so much, if they're, you know, well, that's a story that you have to answer for yourself, man. I don't know. Is that person meant for you? How much does your family mean to you? Like, it's all your own stuff you have to figure out with your own life, man. But I wish you guys the best from the bottom of my heart. And that's a tough one, man. It's like, me personally, I am eternally thankful for the feminine forces that have reached out to me in the universe. And that is something that I never take for granted. I'm extremely fortunate, although I've had to suffer through a long time. So I hope you guys take care and find out the truth for yourself.